L'chaim v'livracha. To life and to blessings. How do you deal with personal failings? We're human, and we all have failings. We all have character qualities that don't serve us so well. We have great, the previous Rebbe said, you have to know your good character qualities. And you have to be aware of the things that are not positive. So we're probably more acutely aware, maybe not, maybe we're more acutely aware of our qualities that are challenging, and maybe not as acutely aware of our good qualities. We need both. There's no question we need to have both. So the one who's more acutely aware of their failings probably is going to be a downer in there. They're going to be a down on themselves more often than not. Right? Yes, I see a lot of shaking of the head. And naturally, we might think that that's coming from a good place because we want to improve. We want to be better. Right? And to improve and to be better is to, sometimes to, take ourselves to task, right? As the old saying goes, if you don't face your stuff, then you stuff your face, right? That's why we put some healthy nuts over there, so you don't, you'll be nutty. But, at least it should be a healthy nut. So how are you a healthy nut? To face your stuff properly and not to be overtaken by it, brought down by it, and sometimes feeling, whoa, you're at the bottom of the mountain, and you look up, well, I got this issue about me. I'm not talking about anybody else. Yesterday, we spoke about issues outside of us that we can't control. We can't control our wealth. We can't control even our health. We can do things towards it, but we can't control it. Right? We can't control our relationships. Right? So we spoke about that yesterday. Now we're speaking about the things of ourselves, our personal failings. Well, something that we have to own, and something that we can have some, if you will, mastery over. Right? That's exactly actually where we're going with this, right? A Beinani. And BIT's Beinani in training is to have that self-mastery. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you with Chabad Zich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. So, real earnest people who take their life seriously will be saddened because of heavenly matters, meaning character flaws or behavior that wasn't appropriate, and will own it and will try to do better. But what will naturally happen in such a earnest individual is you're going to be saddened because of it. It's going to bring me down, right? We have to free ourselves of that. Why? Because we have to serve God with joy, with simcha. Why is it so important to serve God with simcha?
Divine presence abides only where there's simcha.
Because, yes, that's true. That's true. And that in of itself, but it's because life is a battle, a struggle from within, and without joy, you're not going to be able to struggle, and therefore there won't be the presence, right? But without simcha, without joy, you are not going to be able to deal with life's struggles, because sadness is going to weigh you down, and the weight of that will not allow you to have the wherewithal, the agility, spiritual agility, to fight the daily battle from within. So we need joy, gladness of heart, right? Now you might think, hey, yeah, but the fact that this came to me, this kind of feeling down in the middle of let's say lunch, right? Not breakfast, because breakfast, I guess, is here sometimes, right? But at lunchtime or during your day's activity and at work or whatever it might be, right? So you might think the fact that I have anxiety about something I said to somebody and I feel a little down about it, I misspoke or whatever it is that I did, that I'm owning it. And because I'm owning it, serious, so I have this anxiety and this kind of downer. So you might think, oh, well, that's a positive thing. No, actually, the Alter Rebbe says it's not coming from your divine soul. It's coming from your animal soul. What's the proof, he says? Because look, when it came to you, this feeling of a downer is during lunch. Well, or during work. During lunch, during work, or your mundane activity, you're not imbued with your divine soul, right? That's not what is leading you at that moment. And the fact that so who's talking to you? It's your animal soul. Okay, it may not be the animal soul that's bringing you down, but it's your, you're not exposing your divine soul then. When you're studying Torah, you're exposing your divine soul. When you're praying, you're exposing your divine soul. Or we can, at least, right? But at work, really not. So that thought came to you. So it came to you from your animal soul. It didn't come to you from your divine soul, right? To own it and to fix it and so on. If it came during prayer, where you're attuned to your divine soul, so then that's a different story. But if it came to you at work or at lunchtime, we're dealing with, whatever mundane activity, you didn't activate your divine soul, so it's not coming from your divine soul. That message to you of feeling anxiety because I said something, feeling sad because I said something I shouldn't have said, right, and so on and so forth, right? That's the first thing to be aware of. And why is that? Why is the animal soul now bringing? You would think, what the animal soul is telling me to take ownership of the thing that I said and feeling bad about it. Yeah, because you know what? A person can't live with feeling bad about themselves. You can't live that way. So you're feeling bad, guess what will happen right after? You're going to find some pleasure to make you feel good. So you're going to go binge on Netflix because you feel lousy, or you're going to go look for comfort food because I need to comfort myself. So what the animal soul is really trying to do is to bring you down as a result. So it's telling you, feel bad about what you did, right? Feel anxiety for the words that you said. It's all coming from the animal soul. That's a very powerful statement, right? Right? So then, but that thought came to me. And it's true. I did say something that I shouldn't have said. I'm feeling anxiety about it, right? So recognize that that's where it's coming from. So then what do? I mean, there is an issue over here. There's a feelings that I got to deal with. Says the Alter Rebbe, okay, you're aware of it. Set a time afterwards that you're not motivated by your animal souls, talking to you. That you could talk to yourself based on not your animal soul talking to you, but your divine soul. At a time where you're not feeling anxiety, where you're kind of calm. Right? In this moment, you're not calm. Because, yeah, you just said something and, right? Set aside a proper time that you can deal with whatever sinful, wrong thing that you did. And then when you do that, reflect. And the important thing, you know what you reflect on? Of who, not what you did, but who you did it to. It's a very powerful idea too. Everything over here is like, everything itself is a book in itself. And the Alter Rebbe says it in a line. He does it in a line, and it's like a whole book. So it says reflect on who you did it to, not what you did. Ultimately, and if you did something, if you said something not nice to another person, now of course you got to deal with that person, right? But ultimately, who did you do this to? To God. What you did is ultimately, you did something against God. Because it's not a sin to that person. It's a sin against God. If I did not, if I didn't speak appropriately to this person, so yes, I've got to make amends with that person, but the sin is to God. So it's not enough to that person. I got to deal with it with God. And that's what you think about. I did this against God ultimately. Right? And yes.
Is it normal? Sometimes it's becoming painful that we feel we affect the unity of God.
Well, in that moment, yes. Yes, in that moment. But remember how the Alter Rebbe says to do it. Not in the moment that you are feeling bad. No, because that's your animal soul talking to you. Right? It was just trying to bring you down even further, bring you down a slippery slope. The animal soul doesn't want you to fail. The animal soul wants what after you fail.
It's coming
That after you fail, you're going to feel lousy, you're going to feel guilty, you're going to feel anxiety, and therefore you can't live that way, and therefore the animal soul will bring you down a slippery slope that you're going to pig out, you're going to look for comfort food, you're going to binge on Netflix, or watch a comedy just to allow yourself to be soothed, right? So it's just bringing you down a slippery slope, right?
Is it coming from the love of Hashem?
It's coming from your animal soul, we just explained, right? Therefore, take note of it. Deal with the issue at a calm time, where you're not having anxiety and where you're not feeling guilty, where you can now deal with it appropriately based on owning it in a way that you own it on who you did it against ultimately. Not just merely that person, but against God. Right? And then have genuine bitterness as opposed to feeling lousy, which we're going to learn more about that soon. What bitterness means. And once you are bitter, means like this. How could I have said that? That was such not nice. How could I be disconnected from God in that moment by saying, that's bitterness. Sadness is, I feel lousy. I feel guilty for what I did, right? Bitterness is full of life. Sadness is full of the opposite of life. It weighs you down, right? Bitterness at yourself, not at someone else, right? Never at someone else, at yourself, right? Now that you've dealt with it and you've owned it and you've made amends to Hashem and to whoever else, if you have to do it to someone else, right? Not always is it someone else, right? It could be just to Hashem. Right? Then the Alter Rebbe says, remove it from your heart now. You're finished. Take it away. Don't let it stay there. If you have anxiety, if you have guilt, who is that talking to you? Your animal soul. If it's your divine soul talking to you, you've removed this from your heart. And you believe with perfect faith that God has erased the sin and God pardons you abundantly. Abundantly means that even though You did it yesterday, the day before, the same sin, right? The same sin. You did it yesterday, the day before, and the day before that. Abundantly means God, He is, if you really mean it, God is forgiving as if it was the first time. As we'll learn that more about that later, right? This is the knowledge that, right, that we have to have, that we've been cleansed. And if we're cleansed now from that sin, what comes now? True joy. True joy that follows what was originally sadness. Originally it was a sadness, right? Anxiety, feeling guilty, right? That's all a form of sadness, right? So this is what King Solomon said at the beginning of the chapter, if you recall, that this is the profit that comes of sadness. Sadness itself is not an end in itself. It doesn't have a true value, right? Why? Because it's negative. It's not a positive force. It's a negative force. But there's a profit that comes from it, because from that sadness, that if you detect that it's your animal soul talking to you, and you don't let it now control you, right? In feeling the guilt, right? In feeling anxiety from what you did, and you deal with it, but in a calm space. So that sadness brought you to that. So it brought a profit. Why? Because in the end, you dealt with it appropriately. And because you dealt with it appropriately, now you can be secure that Hashem has forgiven you. And Hashem has forgiven you, you're cleansed. And now that's all left is true joy, a double joy that we spoke about at the beginning of the chapter. This is like, wow, this is unbelievable. Is that clear? So to be able to do that, right? To like really appreciate this process and to follow this process, it's a game changer in our lives. A total game changer. Okay, any questions? Any comments? Frank, is the animal soul and divine soul connected on any level? I don't know what you mean by connected. They're both within us, so they're very much connected with, with us and within us. Absolutely, yeah. If you have a question, I'm reminded to put 2 question marks before, so I can notice right away that it's a question. Okay, I don't see any questions. Any questions here? Clear? Yeah?
Maybe a question.
Sure.
Can the animal soul be like a tool for us to, like if we deal with the sadness appropriately after we're starting to feel guilt and anxiety? It can be useful if we learn how to deal with the feeling. Maybe it can be like a tool for us to...
Exactly, that's what the Alter Rebbe is saying. That's why it's a profit. Sadness that comes from the animal soul. Remember, the sadness from the animal soul, right? Sadness means anxiety, feeling guilty, right? Those are all sentiments of sadness, right? Right? So that's coming from the animal. That's coming from the animal soul. When you're aware that that's where it's coming from, so that will then, and you don't deal with it from that place, because when you deal it from that place, you're going to go down a slippery slope, because that's what the Alter Rebbe said. We can't live with guilt, so we have to camouflage it. right? The animal soul will camouflage it because otherwise I'm not going to survive. How do I survive? I can't survive it with guilt. So I'm going to camouflage it. How am I going to camouflage it? I'm going to watch a comedy. So take my mind off it, right? Right. But that's camouflaging it. But if you recognize it's your animal soul that's talking to you then, and you say, okay, I'm not dealing with it from coming from that place. I'm going to, when I'm calm, in a good space, right? Not in a moment of feeling guilt, not in a moment of feeling anxiety, but in a good space, I'm going to, or I'll put myself into a good space, right? That I realize not from there, and now deal with it. So it was a tool. It was a tool, right? But the self-awareness is realizing that it came from the animal soul, and that I can't deal with it from there. I have to put myself into a good place, right? And now deal with whatever shortcomings I have, whatever thing that I did that was inappropriate, whatever I said that I shouldn't have said, so on and so forth. And now deal with it. And what's the first thing you're going to deal with it? You're going to think about what I did, not what I did. And see, it's interesting. I'll never say it here, but if I think about, like, oh, I said that to my friend, and now my friend's going to think terrible about me, and they're going to not like me, and so on and so forth because I said this, right? That's all animal soul talk, right? Why? It's all about me. It's all about me, right? It's all about me. Oh, they're going to think about me like this, and that's the animal soul survival. But recognize that who's talking to you, and don't make that the conversation, right? When you're in a calm space, you say, oh, I did something to God, not about me. I mean, it's about what I did, but it's who I did it to, meaning I disconnected from Hashem in that moment. And that's what matters to me. I don't want to be disconnected. And of course, at the same time, I disconnected from my friend, right? And I don't want to be disconnected from my friend. Not about how they think about me. I want the relationship. I want to be connected, right? That's a very different way to deal with it. That's coming from a divine place. I don't want to be disconnected. I want to be connected. First and foremost to God. And that's why this is who you did it against, right? So I have the bitterness of feeling that, how can I disconnect myself from Hashem from that? How can I disconnect from my friend this way? I want a connection to God. I want a connection to my friend. Right? A very different way on how to deal with what you did. Because, this is very unique. No one, going to anybody to help you, any professional, right? To go for therapy, they're not going to tell you anything like this.
No.
They're going to tell you, oh, you shouldn't act that way because, look what you've done to yourself. Is there a truth to that? Absolutely. Look what you've done. Look, think before you speak, and don't speak that way that disconnects you from your good friend, from your spouse, from your children. And the therapy is going to help you to so on and so on. Where is it helping you? Just to build your animal soul. That's all it's doing, right? To help build your animal soul, right? Your animal soul should have survival, right? This is a whole different way of dealing with it.
Giving skills to the animal soul.
Yeah, giving skill to the animal soul. Now, there's a value to, don't get me wrong, there's a value to it, right? Because you could be a bull in a china shop, or you could be a little sweet, little kitten, right? A kitten does a lot less damage than a bull. So you could have an animal soul that's a bull, or you can have an animal soul that's a sweet little, little puppy, a little whatever, right? Kitten, so on and so forth, right? So obviously it does less damage,
Yeah.
right? And and after all, the little puppy is man's best friend. So but what man? The animal of the man, not the divine, not the divine, not the divine's best friend, right? So there is a value in that you should not be a bull, so you have a more refined animal soul, but that's not Tanya, and that's not divine. That's just all about you and nothing about a relationship with God. And in the end, it's not even about a relationship with the other person. It's right, like, does that serve you well when you speak that way to your best friend or to your spouse? So then let's find out why you did it. Let's find out what kind of trauma you went through in your youth, and we'll find out what caused you to do that. Is there a truth to that? Yes. But the trauma is the animal soul. What caused you to do it is your animal soul. And all you're doing is, okay, refining to some degree the animal soul. And again, if someone wants to do that, power to them. Go to therapy. You learn Tanya? You don't need therapy. This is your therapy. Maybe you need someone to help you with this and how to implement this properly in a proper manner. And then, by the way, that's what we have TRC, Tanya Rabbi Community, every Sunday night, 8 p.m. We have a group of people who take these ideas and we develop them in a more personal way. The things people might be going through. If someone's interested, you can reach out. But that's a whole different way to deal with it. About a divine way, about a relationship that is, you want the relationship. You want to be connected, not disconnected. Again, first and foremost, your first relationship is with Hashem, with God. Then every other relationship will be a reflection of that, right? And that's why the Alter says here, who you did it against. Because ultimately, anything we do against another person is against God if it's something that's wrong. Because what makes it wrong, not your guilt. What makes it wrong? Hashem doesn't want that. That's what makes it wrong. So we have to make amends with Hashem. And after we did that, wipe it away. Wipe it away. Move forward. That's like, wow. Where does that doesn't exist in therapy either. It can't exist in therapy. Right? No, in therapy it exists. Why? Have compassion on yourself. Right? So again, about you. Have compassion on you. A whole different kettle of fish.
I think the person who was asking the question there about the connection between the divine soul and the animal soul, in Tanya is called the nefesh hasechel, which is the intellectual soul.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a glue.
Yeah. Okay. Now, people might have mental health issues, right? That's a different story. People have mental health issues, which many people today have more than ever before. This might not be sufficient. What we spoke here, try it. And if you don't, because of mental health issues, so then that needs to be dealt with also at the same time. That doesn't necessarily mean therapy, but that's an important thing too. And if we're not capable of incorporating this, and we're kind of still at the same place we were 6 months ago, either we're not really making the effort because human beings were lazy, right? I know, because that's me. Right. So we might be lazy and not making the effort, or there could be a mental health issue, and therefore the the truth of the teachings and the application and the implementation of the teachings may not be so easy for someone. It's not easy for anybody, even if you don't have, it's not easy. Truth is never easy. But if you don't seem to be able to incorporate these things, so that sometimes could be an issue. I think it's usually more laziness, right? Because this is real, like this is really working on yourself and and taking full ownership of your life. Okay. All right. Any questions more okay, amazing. Folks, you're amazing. Thank you. Rambam.
Rabbi, I don't know if this